Hello, in today's video we'll be taking a more in-depth look into the exporting process. The first thing you want to do before you even go to export your project is to ensure that your sequence is fully rendered. As you can see from the yellow bar, this clip is not actually fully rendered. Although it has no effects on it and it's just been dragged over from the bin, it still is not fully rendered. Okay, so most people will choose to render their clips by using the keyboard shortcut, and the default for that is just the enter button. But as you can see, when we click enter, it does nothing and the bar stays yellow. So what you're going to want to do is go to sequence, and instead of render effects into out, which is what the keyboard shortcut for enter correlates to, you want to go to just render in to out, which you can see is now rendering your sequence. This will render the entire sequence, including effects and any videos that are untouched. Obviously, depending on the quality you've shot your video in, this will take a longer or shorter amount of time. Most people forget this step, or they don't realise that it's not fully rendered, but it is a very important step in terms of speeding up your final encoding time. Obviously, if you've got an amazing computer, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference, but it is always a good thing to know about in terms of your general playback quality as well. If things are lagging in the timeline, you might just want to quickly do a full render in and out rather than just effects. And as you can see, this bar is now green, which means it has been fully rendered. Okay, so once that's done, you can go ahead and export your sequence. You want to make sure that you are clicked on the sequence, as you can see with the highlighted blue box, because for example, if you are clicked on the bin, you will not be able to export. So ensure that you are clicked on your sequence, and there you can go to File, Export, Media, or Control M for the keyboard shortcut. Okay, so here we are in the export settings. There are many things you can do in the source settings, sequence into out, entire sequence, work area, etc, etc. Sequence into out is going to export what is in between your in and out markers on your sequence. So for mine, I haven't got any. If you were to put into out markers on your sequence, you would click the I and the O, and that will be this little highlighted section here, which is what would be exported out for your video. If you select export entire sequence, it will export everything on your timeline. So if you've got any B-roll or anything further up your timeline that you haven't been using, it will export all of that. Or if you've got any random black screen going on, it will export all of that. So as a rule of thumb, you want to make sure that you have your in and out selected on only what you want to be exported. However, if you only have one clip, you don't really need to worry about that, only if there's other things on your timeline that could also get exported along with it. So the shortcut for the export settings was Control M, so let's just go ahead and open that up again. So here we are back in the export settings. So for this sequence into out will work fine for us. Generally you're going to be wanting to use H.264, but there are lots of different formats. You could export just a JPEG or PNG file to create a screenshot from your video if you wanted to add in a freeze frame or anything like that. Or if you just wanted to export the audio, you can just export in MP3 or another audio file there. But also if you're just wanting to get a video out quite quickly, if it's just a rough cut to be sent for approval, you could probably export that in QuickTime or Windows Media, which you can see has a lower estimated file size than H.264, which will therefore take a shorter amount of time encoding. Obviously the quality will be lower on these exports, but that's why you only want to export in these types of formats if you're doing just a quick rough cut or anything like that. So with your preset, you've got a big drop down here, but the main thing you want to be looking out for is to match what you have shot your video in to what you're going to export your video in. So for example, 1080 with 1080, 720 with 720, 480 with 480. So if we come out of this preset and we just look at the source here, we can see that this has been shot in 1080. Therefore, we want to pick 1080. You might be thinking, surely if I've shot in a lower quality, what if I just render it in a higher quality? That'll make it better. You do not want to do this because this will actually downgrade the quality of your video. You can go from higher to lower in terms of if you shot in 1080, you could downgrade that then to 720, but you definitely do not want to be going up in sizes. So you wouldn't go, for example, from if this was shot in 720 to then exporting it in 1080, because that will essentially lower the quality. You're not adding in any new information into the larger file size, and so it essentially just stretches out the footage, which lowers the overall quality and look of your video. So as a rule of thumb, I would tend to just stick to matching what you've shot in to what you've edited in to what you're exporting in. Now you might be asking, what's the difference between, for example, high quality 1080p and the YouTube 1080p Full HD? Well, that will be all to do with a little thing called your bitrate. As you can see in the YouTube preset, it is set to about 16. The reason why the YouTube preset is at around 16 is because YouTube actually compresses your videos when you upload them, and they have a maximum of around 15. So if you are uploading anything onto YouTube, you want to make sure that it's not going too much higher than a 16 bitrate. Because otherwise when you then upload it onto YouTube, YouTube will then lower the quality of your video. And in the Full HD preset it is set to about 20. The general idea with bitrate is that the higher the number, the greater your quality, but also the higher the number, the larger your file size, and also the longer it takes to export. Now, what is the bitrate encoding? Well, that is basically variable bitrate or constant bitrate. Most likely you're going to be wanting to use a variable bitrate. There are two options for variable bitrate on here, the 1 pass and the 2 pass. For a clip like this, you are probably okay with just doing the 1 pass because it's just one straight clip, there's not any effects on it, it's totally fine. But if your project has a lot of effects on it, or it has some talking heads which go into lots of effects, so some peaks and valleys in terms of how intensive your project is, you'll probably want to do the 2 pass. Basically what 2 pass does is it allows you to change your target bitrate and your maximum bitrate. So if you have got a lot of effects on your project, it can then dedicate more of the bitrate to these sections of the video, which will then increase the look and quality of your video as a whole. Unfortunately, this process does take a long time, and therefore I would not suggest this if you are working on a less powerful computer, because it could probably take a whole day to export. But for this sort of video, we are good to go with the 1 pass. Okay, and we want to make sure that we've got export audio and export video ticked. And then we're going to go into output name, and we're just going to rename this file to example and pick where we are wanting to save that. We are going to be wanting to export in 1080p because for your NAE projects we are going to send them over to the exam board and not put them up on YouTube, so we want the best quality possible. And then we want to tick render at maximum depth and use maximum render quality. That will give you the best quality for your video. Sometimes for some reason Adobe and cross dissolves don't like to mesh together with render at maximum depth and use maximum render quality. So if you are having an issue with your export being a bit glitchy in terms of your cross dissolves, you can just go in and unclick those. But generally you want to have those clicked because it will give you a better output. This does increase encoding time as well, but it is important to giving your video an overall higher quality look. Okay, and once that's all done, you can go ahead and click the export button. Another way to export a video though is to click the Q button. This is a nifty little tool that sends your export to be encoded over on Media Encoder if you have that downloaded, of course. But essentially what this does is it sends your export settings over to Media Encoder and allows you to export over there so that you can then continue to edit your project in Premiere Pro whilst it is exporting over on Media Encoder. So for example, if you've got multiple sequences open in your project and you are wanting to continue working on those, you can do so. Or just generally, if you've got a slower computer, this can be a good tool because it allows you to then close Premiere Pro and work on something else without the program being open in the background using up a lot of your computer's resources. Once you have exported your video once before, the program will save your settings from the previous time you have exported, allowing you a much simpler exporting process. The only thing you will want to remember is to change the output name because unfortunately Premiere Pro does not remember where you wanted to save your files to. So you will always want to go in and make sure you know where you're saving your file and what you are naming it. So then you can just go ahead and click the export button without having to worry about any of the settings. And as we can see back over on Media Encoder, our project has exported successfully, which is shown by the green tick just here. So we can go into our documents or wherever you've chosen to save this file. And here is our exported video. As you can see, it has not been affected by the changes that we made whilst it was exporting, and it is ready to be uploaded wherever you're wanting it to go.